Are we gonna get a brand new Breath of the Wild 2 trailer at the Game Awards?
And Star Fox 2 is coming to the Switch?
Hot take.
Hey, listen.
All right, folks, I am a big fan of the SNES Classic. I believe you are too.
Yes, specifically Star Fox and Star Fox 2, which is exclusive to the SNES Classic.
Yeah, the Star Fox 2 release that never actually came out on the Super Nintendo eventually did see its way getting released on the SNES Classic in a very, well, it's not really a limited run, but it definitely was a run that not everyone could pick up. The SNES Classic sold out, and when it sold out, they stopped making them. So that kind of sucked for a lot of people that missed out. But good news, that version of the game is coming directly to the Switch in the way of form of the SNES Online service, which is actually connected to the Nintendo Online thing. It's a little bit messy. You can't actually buy it directly. It's a game that you download and you have to keep paying per month to be able to play it, but at least you can play it on the Switch somehow, and that's what we got in it.
If you have an internet connection.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the Nintendo Switch Online, I really like what they're doing with this. They're experimenting, they're trying new things. A few months ago, they said, hey, by the way, here's some Super Nintendo games, but we're going to be slowing down the release. It's not going to be monthly anymore. And everyone was like, oh, why are you doing that? And now it's kind of like, hey, Merry Christmas. Here's a bunch of games. Was not expecting Star Fox 2 on the Switch Online, but it's smart. Like that's a good incentive. There's a lot of people who might have really not wanted to pick up the SNES Classic. Who's going to pick this up?
Yeah, I mean, there's no real danger now of Nintendo kind of harming the sales of the SNES Classic because they're not really selling that anymore. So for people that missed out, this is a very easy way to get into it. Now, personally, I would have loved to see an option to purchase that version of the game separately as a digital download because eventually when they do turn off the servers of the Nintendo Switch, and it will happen just like every season before it, when that happens, that game is never going to be able to be played or downloaded again as soon as the time on the download is up, which I'm not really a big fan of.
Which is fair, but on the other side, you know, this game was 20 years unavailable to us, and Nintendo pulled that out and said, here you go, you can have it on, you know, on a piece of hardware, which is the SNES Classic. And then they took it a step further and said, hey, let's just make this available. So they're heading in the right direction. I see where you're coming from, where, yeah, a lot of people do want to own this. And I think we might see that maybe down the road. We saw it with Tetris 99, which originally came out on the Switch Online exclusively. And then we just saw the physical release come out in September for those who really want to have that on their shelves, right?
That's true. And let's be fair. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of people out there that are just like, hey, what is Star Fox? Because the last time we got a Star Fox game, it didn't do very well. You're a fan of it, though.
It was good. I enjoy it. I think I still, to this day, have one of the highest reviews of that game out on the internet. That's for another hot take. I'm happy to talk about it on another one.
But speaking about classic systems, how about the Nintendo 64 Classic?
Yeah, what? Does this show any sign of a change of strategy? And also, a lot of people have been speculating about the N64 Classic. Where is it? What's happening? And my take on this is we're not going to see it.
No, we're not. This is in my mind, what we're seeing here is Nintendo going down a different route where they've got this game and it was originally exclusive to that one classic system that they made. But now that they're going into this direction of focusing on Nintendo Online, I firmly believe that a Nintendo 64 Classic simply isn't going to happen for a variety of reasons. And one being, folks, there's a library of games there. Not going to say there isn't, but there's not as many good games as you might actually think there are. It just didn't have the biggest library compared to the PlayStation at the time.
It had about 200 games. I actually did the research on this because I was trying to find the 64 best game on the 64. It was harder than... I wasn't going to say it's harder than you think because you already know it's hard. It's challenging.
Yeah.
There's fantastic classics. Like you could easily build a library of 20 games, but they didn't all age that well.
Yep. And in some cases, they don't actually own the rights to the games out right now, too. So there's that problem as well. But in the end, what you really got to think about here is Nintendo's focusing on Nintendo Online. And because they're doing that, they've got a lot of focus on making sure that if a Nintendo 64 online service were to happen where you get the games for free through the subscription service, that's the way it would happen. And why did the SNES Classic and NES Classic originally get released? Well, it was because they were having some weird sales going on at the time with the Switch. They didn't have a lot of library stuff. There was this in-between moment between the Wii U and the Switch
That's
as well.
what I was going to say. It was at a time where the Wii U, they had given up on it. It wasn't selling, and they needed to, you know, I'm assuming they have these relationships with all of the retailers.
Yes.
And they can't go into a holiday season, and the retailers are going to be like, all right, Nintendo, what are we going to put on shelves? They can't go and say Wii U's. Okay, what's the, like, that's been out for 5 years. So the NES Classic seems like it was a solution to a lot of things, specifically the Wii U. not selling, and I think that got pulled earlier than it was originally anticipated. The Wii U life cycle was not very long.
Yes, it wasn't supposed to be the way it turned out. The Wii U is a bomb of a system, unfortunately, and it caused a lot of issues. The SNES Classic, at least from what I could tell, that happened because there was a bit of a downturn on Switch releases because the Switch got released very quickly early on before I think it was even ready to come out. But what you ended up getting was an SNES Classic that kind of filled in a little bit of this void. But now, there isn't a void. There are plenty of reasons to get a Switch. There are 2 variations of the Switch out on the market right now.
There is, and it's selling very well.
Yes, it is. Incredibly well, folks. It is probably, this time around, for the Thanksgiving a period, this is the greatest Nintendo sales they've ever had for a console, I believe.
Yeah, just over Thanksgiving, they sold about 830,000 units in the Americas alone. So that's not worldwide. So it's kind of a perfect storm for the Switch right now. Its competitors are kind of dying down. The PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, they're winding down for the next gen. The Switch right now is what, 2-3 years into its life. It's got its solid library. You've got your Mario, your Zelda, Mario Kart, Smash. Everything is there so that a lot of people, they don't use, there's that mainstream audience that waits for the library to fill out a bit. Right now we're in that prime. And now you've got options. Oh, you want a bit of a cheaper Switch? Here's the Switch Lite. Everything is kind of happening at the right time. They had their Black Friday deals where you could get Mario Kart 8 bundled with the Switch. It's the perfect storm for the Switch to really surge. And really, this is a perfect time to drop a big bomb.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like, folks, if you're in the zone of wanting a Switch right now, maybe you're on the fence still, what could get you to go to the next level and actually pick up the Switch, or possibly be very excited about new games that are coming out? Well, this is where the next rumor comes in. Now, remember, this is a rumor. Take this with a grain of salt,
Metroid
folks.
Prime 4.
Yeah, okay. Well, that we know what's going on.
Yes.
We are to understand from a couple of different sources that possibly we might be seeing Breath of the Wild 2, the sequel to Breath of the Wild that was so successful on the Switch initially, get a trailer, a big new one, at the Game Awards that possibly might show off some gameplay and stuff. You never know.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Breath of the Wild, that was a dual release. It was on the Wii U, so there's a lot of people who picked up the game there. So Breath of the Wild 2 is only going to be on Switch. And you have to consider that when you look at the marketing plan for Breath of the Wild, it was very much integrated between E3 and the Game Awards. They held back a lot of exclusive footage for the Game Awards. We saw Breath of the Wild 2 at E3 earlier this year. We know the development cycle is not going to take as long because they're reusing the same engine, the same assets. So a lot of their public excuse for Breath of the Wild taking so long and having all the delays was, we keep getting new ideas to put in, which I believe, there's a lot of ideas there in that new engine. Also, we can't ignore the Wii U was not doing so well, and that was their trump card for it. So would you, now it would be the perfect time.
Yes,
the Switch is right. You have no competition. PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or Xbox and PlayStation, they're holding their cards close to their chest because 2020 is their year.
Yes.
So this is the time for Nintendo to really drive hype, really get people to buy into this. Game Awards is next week, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we're right before December, right before the big holiday season. We're in December, right before the big holiday season begins. And I think what's important is to consider that if Nintendo really wants to grab people that are playing PlayStation 4 right now and Xbox One, and they're on the fence because there really isn't that much information about the next generation of systems to go on. So Nintendo has this entire library. We're not going anywhere. We've got this crazy, amazing game that's about to come out, and you can only play it on our platform. By the way, our platform is going to be cheaper than the other guys. And it's probably a big deal to really drive people to get the Switch now. Now, what's really important about this too is that this game, I mean, I think a lot of people are just kind of confused about the idea that we might be seeing this game sooner than we probably hope, or sooner than we would imagine we would. But you do raise a very good point. Previously, they were porting the game from the Wii U to the Switch. There was issues with that. It was on a brand new system, a brand new engine. There's a lot of stuff going on here. It's very complex. But now, all they really have to do is take the assets from the previous game and just rework them a bit. In fact, the best analogy to this would be Majora's Mask.
Yeah, that's a perfect one. And before you get into your analogy, I just want to point out that when they were doing Breath of the Wild, they were getting all these new ideas because they were in a whole new universe. Like the engine everything, there was so much stuff that was possible that they're still discovering. Players are still discovering new ways and new things to do in the world that the developers didn't think of.
Yes,
So
right.
now you think about it, they've had the last 2-3 years to look at how players interact in their world, the feedback of what people liked and what they didn't like, and they can take that, and they've just been working on a sequel to that of, you keep the things that work and you just add more stuff on top
It's
of
true.
that.
Yeah.
How could this be bad?
Yeah, I honestly, I think that's a very good point to bring up too. When people are playing Breath of the Wild, there's all these little weird hacks and tricks that people have been using that I know people think, well, the developers intended for these things to happen. Like you're trying to bridge an electrical connection from one thing to another, so you just drop a bunch of swords on the floor to do that.
Oh yeah,
like,
that's
there's
cool.
a way to do that. I guarantee you, the developers didn't actually think of that. What they did was they created a system, a process of engine and game design that allowed for that freedom to exist. That's the genius of this game. It's not that they thought you could do those things. It's that they were like, okay, what if we made those tools available to make those things sort of happen?
Yep.
It's the Minecraft approach of game design. We'll give you the pieces. You figure out how the pieces work. I remember in the early days, because we had a copy of the game. I think both of us had early copies of the game before it had come out.
Yep.
And so when we were reviewing it early days, you couldn't talk to anyone, right? Because you're reviewing the game. You can't talk to anybody about it. But I remember after the first day when our reviews got out, I had to ask you, how did you beat this one part? And you told me you held a torch to yourself and you walked through to keep yourself warm. And then what I did was I lit something on fire and dragged it along or something to keep myself warm. There's all these weird things.
There's so many ways to approach a problem.
Yeah.
Like, it was all to people's ingenuity, whatever they could think of.
And that was the really cool aspect of this. But to think about what is possible with the next Legend of Zelda is that that the developers have seen this. They know all those things. And you're right. They can see what people didn't like. They can. One of my biggest problems with the game was that there's a lot of empty. There's a lot of empty, nothing to do, Death Stranding type of just walking around. I have to keep doing that. And
you can ride a horse.
Oh, sure. But one of the things that they can do now is they can add more things, including the trailers we have seen. There seems to be a little bit more buildings, more things like that.
There is, and I think that's a symptom of the fact that they fell into a well with Breath of the Wild of, whoa, there's so much we can do. And that was some of the feedback. People said, oh, there's so much more that they could put in here. And that's why I'm really excited with Breath of the Wild 2, because now they've had 2-3 years and maybe another year or two of development that they can fill that out, and they know what people want. They've seen what other developers are putting in their games. They can bring those good parts and then give that little Nintendo polish and add in some new things. So, last week I did a hot take with Adam, and we were all Game Awards season always comes with rumors, and it always comes with what's Nintendo's reveal going to be. And everyone's talking about Metroid Prime 4, which is why I mentioned that earlier. But this makes a lot more sense when you consider everything. Breath of the Wild 2 has way more pull. With the Game Awards being so close before the holidays, this is the right time, following up on the Thanksgiving hype. This is the time for Nintendo to go hard while all the competitors are getting ready for their next gen. This is Nintendo's moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is really where it's going to play, folks. I hope we get to see a trailer here. If we don't see a trailer at the Game Awards, we're going to be seeing a trailer very, very soon. I would imagine we'd see one before the announcements of the next generation of consoles from Sony and Microsoft, where they actually show off the next console, show off the games, because they needed to really head everybody in advance.
What do you think would get people really excited? Because Breath of the Wild was something we could not conceive. It was so different.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild 2, we're going with expectations. And the E3 trailer was very story-driven.
That's true, yeah.
So do you think if they do something at the Game Awards, we're going to see a trailer with more story? Or are we going to see a new gameplay mechanic?
I think what we might see is maybe a lot more gameplay, a lot more exploration of the world, just adding more to what's already there so that it feels like there's a lot more you can do. Because I think people know what the possibilities of the engine are, and to know that you can do more things in that engine and do more things in that world would add a lot more. I don't think they're going to do multiplayer, but concepts of co-op and stuff, those ideas, if you were to introduce those things, because remember, the most difficult aspect of these games is really all those building blocks, all those pieces that you have to have established, and they're already working off that, right? When I brought up Majora's Mask previously, what I was basically talking about was that we had Ocarina of Time come out, and then a little while later, we got Majora's Mask, which used the exact same kind of engine, same kind of graphics, same kind of idea, so they didn't have to reinvent the world. It was take this, and now add things, fix things, change things. And that's what they did. And they ended up getting 2 Zelda games out on the exact same system generation. We do get that on other consoles from Nintendo as well, but that's not always the same case for that direct line of connection between the development of the two.
I think, my personal choice for the Game Awards, if they can show a new gameplay mechanic, I think that's what they need to really get people super excited, because we already got the story trailer. We're already sold. Okay, Zelda's back, Link's back.
Yeah.
We got Ganondorf maybe this time. But if you can show just one little piece of gameplay that goes people like, what? That with the Breath of the Wild engine in the universe? I'm sold.
Sure.
I think that's what would get a lot of hype going.
Absolutely. Well, folks, what do you think? Are you believing that there's going to be a brand new trailer for Breath of the Wild 2? Or do you think that it's going to be something we see a lot later? And do you think that Nintendo's success has been really good lately, or maybe
Kinda
not so good?
so-so.
Yeah.
Let us know.